In the shadowed halls of history, there lies a tale so haunting, so grotesque, that few dare to whisper its name. A woman, once the shining jewel of France, who reshaped the course of history with her unmatched beauty, found herself ravaged not by time, war, or betrayal, but by a force so vile it lurked beneath her skin: parasites. Agnes Sorel, beloved by kings, adored by soldiers, and feared by ministers, became a legend of decay, her beauty consumed from within. Her tragic demise would not be remembered for scandal or treason, but for something far more terrifying: the hunger of worms. This is not fiction. It is the forgotten truth of the woman who was devoured alive. If you're ready to uncover the darkness that history tried to bury, tap that subscribe button to enter the dark, rotten era. Comment, like, and share, and prepare yourself for the unsettling tale that follows. Agnes Sorel's rise to prominence was anything but conventional. She did not ascend to power through bloodlines or battle, but through an undeniable charm that captivated the hearts and minds of all who encountered her. In a time when kings and knights ruled with iron fists, Agnes's beauty was a weapon far more powerful. Her radiant presence in the court of King Charles VII soon eclipsed all other figures, earning her the title of the king's first official royal favorite. She became his muse, his confidant, his lover. Her influence over him was so powerful that it shaped the very course of French history. Agnes walked through the halls of the palace like an ethereal vision. Her gowns shimmered with pearls, her skin glowed with an otherworldly light, and poets claimed the very air bent toward her. Soldiers adored her, ministers feared her. With her beauty as her weapon, Agnes ruled not through a crown, but through her enchanting presence. Yet beneath the shimmering surface, the seeds of a far darker fate had already been sown, one that would soon overtake her, bringing her story to a tragic and unsettling end. In the early months of 1450, after a long and tiring journey, Agnes returned to the royal court, feeling unwell. Used to the finest comforts and the highest levels of luxury, she could not ignore the growing discomfort in her body. A mild ache in her stomach was the first sign of trouble, easily brushed aside as the fatigue of travel. Yet the pain persisted, worsening as the days went on. What had initially seemed like a minor inconvenience soon escalated into something far more sinister. By the time Agnes arrived at La Maisonneuve, a royal estate prepared for her, the discomfort had become unbearable. She woke in the middle of the night, clutching her abdomen, as sharp, twisting pain tore through her body. She fell from her bed, knees hitting the cold floor, breath caught in her throat. Her cries echoed through the chamber, muffled by the lavish furs lining her room. Agnes, once the epitome of beauty and strength, now found herself in the grip of a mysterious illness. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a nightmare that would consume her from within. Despite the intense pain gnawing at her insides, Agnes refused to show weakness. Her beauty had always been her greatest asset, and she knew all too well that her appearance was a weapon. A weapon that could sway even the most powerful men. She greeted the king's messengers with the same grace and poise she always had, her face pale but composed, her hands trembling beneath layers of silk. To the court, she was the same unshakable woman who had captured the king's heart and the admiration of the entire kingdom. But beneath the surface, the signs of her illness were becoming impossible to ignore. The once fresh scent of her skin had turned sickly sweet, a faint odor of decay lingering in the air around her. The servants exchanged worried glances, whispering among themselves about the strange stench that now followed her. Agnes, however, refused to admit anything was wrong. She continued to dress in the finest gowns and carry herself with the same regal air. But her body, betraying her, had already begun to rot from the inside. As days turned into weeks, Agnes's condition worsened, and the whispers among the courtiers grew louder. Once the most radiant beauty in France, Agnes began to fade before their eyes. The swelling in her abdomen became increasingly pronounced, and her skin, once a perfect glowing alabaster, began to take on a sickly gray hue. Her once vibrant energy vanished, replaced by a listlessness that frightened those around her. The court, once so alive with admiration for her, now became a place of hushed murmurs and fearful glances. Her once flawless beauty was rapidly deteriorating, and rumors began to spread like wildfire. Some whispered that Agnes had been poisoned by envious rivals who sought to rid her of her power. Others speculated that her suffering was divine retribution, punishment for her forbidden love with the king. But what they could not know was that the truth was far more grotesque. Agnes was being consumed from the inside out by parasitic worms, a horror that no one dared to speak of aloud. By the 5th day of her illness, the truth became impossible to ignore. Agnes's physicians, summoned to her side in desperate haste, were baffled by her condition. Their diagnoses ranged from corrupted humors to disturbed bile, but no one dared to acknowledge the most terrifying possibility: that Agnes, once the queen of beauty and grace, was the victim of a grotesque and horrifying infestation. The pain in her abdomen had become unbearable, and the swelling continued to grow, as though something alive was inside her, struggling to break free. The physicians, unwilling to speak of the unspoken terror, could only watch as her beauty withered away, and the terrible truth slowly dawned on them. Agnes was being devoured by parasitic ascaris worms, long serpentine creatures that fed on her body's weakening state. The court was terrified, yet no one could bring themselves to utter the words aloud. How could they reveal to the king that the woman he loved was being eaten alive by the very creatures that thrived in filth and decay? As Agnes's physical condition deteriorated, so did the isolation that had once seemed impossible for someone of her stature. The courtiers who had once adored her now avoided her, too fearful of the disease they believed she had caught. Servants whispered in corners, and even ministers began to distance themselves from her, uncertain of what to make of the bizarre and horrifying situation unfolding within the royal walls. Agnes, once surrounded by admirers and well-wishers, now found herself alone in the palace, save for the few loyal servants who remained by her side, though even they dared not meet her eyes for fear of catching her curse. The once proud woman, the shining star of the French court, was now an outcast in her own home. She clung to the remnants of her former beauty, but her once glowing skin was now dull and mottled, and the regal figure she had once been was being slowly consumed by the very parasites that had invaded her body. As Agnes's condition worsened, rumors of her mysterious illness began to spread like wildfire throughout the palace. Some courtiers claimed she had been poisoned by jealous rivals who sought to rid her of her power. Others believed her suffering to be divine punishment for her relationship with the king, a love that defied the conventions of marriage. Still others whispered that dark magic had been used against her, witchcraft or a curse, some claimed. The court was in turmoil as the truth of her condition became harder to conceal. Agnes, the once beloved royal favorite, was now a shell of her former self, and the very court that had once worshipped her now trembled in fear. Yet the truth remained hidden in the shadows. Agnes was not suffering from poison, magic, or divine retribution, but from an infestation so grotesque that even the court's most experienced physicians were unable to explain it. It was not until the 7th day of Agnes's suffering that the truth could no longer be hidden. The physicians, who had avoided the terrifying possibility, finally acknowledged the horror that was unfolding inside her. Agnes was suffering from a severe infestation of ascaris worms, parasites that had silently invaded her intestines and were now feeding on her body from within. These long, serpentine creatures had grown in numbers, their insatiable hunger consuming her internal organs and causing severe pain and swelling. Agnes, once the embodiment of grace and beauty, was now the host to a nightmare no one could have foreseen. The king, desperate for answers, summoned the physicians to his private chambers, but they could offer him nothing but helplessness. No treatment, no prayer, no remedy could stop the parasitic invasion. Agnes's condition was beyond saving, and the once glorious beauty of the French court was now a victim of the most horrific of deaths. As Agnes's condition deteriorated, her body became a battlefield. The swelling in her abdomen grew grotesque, and the parasites inside her continued to multiply, their movements visible beneath her skin. The pain she endured was unimaginable, yet Agnes fought to maintain her composure. She had once been the queen of beauty and power, but now she was the queen of suffering. Physicians tried everything they could, but the remedies were futile. Agnes's once radiant skin had turned pale and clammy, her hair hung limp and lifeless, and her body had become a mere shell of the woman she once was. The court watched in horror as Agnes's beauty, her power, and her life were slowly consumed by the very parasites that had invaded her body. The final days of her life were marked by agony, and the court could only stand by, helpless, as the woman who had once been adored by all was reduced to a shadow of herself. On the 16th day of her suffering, Agnes Sorel finally succumbed to the horror that had taken over her body. Her death, while a personal tragedy, became a scandal that rocked the entire court. The once magnificent beauty, the woman who had ruled the king's heart, was now a tragic figure consumed by the very creatures that had infested her insides. Her death became a legend, a warning of the fragility of beauty, power, and life itself. The truth of her demise, the worms that had devoured her from within, was a secret too terrible to speak of openly, and yet it became the talk of the court. The king, devastated by her loss, could not bear to face the reality of what had happened to the woman he had loved. Agnes Sorel's legacy, once built on beauty and power, was now a haunting reminder of how the smallest, most invisible creatures could destroy even the greatest of queens. If you were captivated by Agnes Sorel's story, be sure to dive deeper into the dark, rotten era. Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a chilling tale from history's darkest corners. Comment below with your thoughts. What do you think was the true cause of Agnes's downfall? Like this video, share it with friends, and let's spread the truth that history tries to bury. Dark Rotten Era isn't just about stories of the past. It's about the hidden horrors, the untold tragedies, and the forgotten legends that deserve to be remembered. Join us, and let's explore the darkest parts of history together. Don't forget to share and spread the story. Subscribe now.